The morning sky stretched pale and soft over the mountains as the village came alive with quiet excitement. It was the day they had all been waiting for. The day Lee returned. The long months of silence, fear, and unanswered prayers were finally ending. Sam stood by the window of the small house she had kept warm for him. Her hands trembled as she tied her hair, her belly softly rounding beneath her loose dress. The faint cries of chickens outside and the scent of boiling broth filled the air, yet she could barely taste or breathe. What would he say when he found out? The thought clung to her like a shadow that refused to leave. She remembered every message that never came. Every night she whispered his name into the emptiness. Lee had been gone too long, gone on a mission that few men survived. And now, when the war of danger had ended, another battle waited quietly at home. The truth she could no longer hide. When the first engine sound echoed from the hill, Sam froze. Her heart leaped painfully. People ran toward the road, waving flags and flowers. She stayed still for a moment, unable to move, before stepping out, her knees weak. Dust rose as a military truck slowed to a stop. Then she saw him. Lee stepped down, thinner, his uniform worn, but his eyes, those steady, dark eyes, still held the same warmth that once made her forget her fears. For a second, everything else faded. The noise, the people, even the world. Only him. Their eyes met, and in that single moment, 1,000 unspoken words rushed through the air. Relief, disbelief, longing. He smiled faintly, and she felt her throat tighten. She wanted to run to him, to cry, to tell him everything, but she could only whisper, trembling, "Lee, you're home." He nodded, his gaze softening. "I told you I would come back, didn't I?" The village cheered, surrounding them with laughter and joy. But inside her heart, Sam's pulse raced faster than ever. Beneath the happiness of reunion was the weight of a secret she had carried alone, a heartbeat that wasn't just her own. Later that evening, after everyone had left, the little house grew silent again. The lamp flickered softly against the walls. Lee looked around, smiling at the familiar place, at the dried herbs hanging by the window, the chair he once built for her. Sam sat quietly by the table, hands clasped tightly together. The shadows played across her face as she whispered his name once more, not as a greeting this time, but as a prayer. Tomorrow, she told herself, she would tell him the truth. But tonight, she just wanted to sit near him, to listen to his breathing, to remind herself that he was truly here. That love had brought him back before she had to reveal the life growing quietly inside her. The next morning dawned quietly, with the sound of roosters crowing beyond the misty fields. The air smelled of rain and soil, soft and alive, like the first breath of peace after years of storm. Lee woke early, the weight of home pressing gently against his heart. For months, he had dreamed of this, waking up to sunlight instead of gunfire, hearing the rustle of cooking instead of commands. Yet something felt different. Sam was already outside, tending to the garden, her movements slower, gentler. He stepped to the door, watching her. The way she bent to gather herbs, the way her hand pressed against her belly, it caught his breath. There was a softness in her shape that hadn't been there before, a glow that made her look almost unreal. "Sam," he called softly. She turned, startled, her hands still clutching a small basket of vegetables. Her lips parted, but no sound came. "Are you all right?" he asked, walking closer. "You look different." Her eyes darted away. "I'm fine, Lee, just a little tired these days." He frowned slightly. "You're sure?" He stepped closer, his soldier's instinct sensing something unspoken. "You're paler than before," and he stopped mid-sentence, his gaze lowering to her belly, the gentle curve she couldn't hide anymore beneath her loose shirt. Time froze. The air between them grew heavy. Even the birds seemed to stop singing. Sam's lips trembled. She took a deep breath and whispered, almost inaudibly, "Lee, I was going to tell you, I'm pregnant." Lee stared at her, unable to speak. For a long moment, his mind went blank. the battlefield silence returning to his ears, drowning everything else. Pregnant. The word echoed again and again, louder each time. Pregnant. He repeated slowly, his voice rough. But, how long? Almost 7 months, she said, tears welling in her eyes. After you left for Cambodia, I found out. I wanted to tell you, but there was no way. I didn't even know if you were still alive. Lee felt his chest tighten, emotion flooding him faster than he could control. He looked at her, at the woman who had waded through fear and loneliness, carrying not just hope, but a piece of him. Sam? He took a step forward, his voice breaking. Why didn't you tell someone? Why did you bear it all alone? Because I didn't want to believe you were gone, she sobbed softly. I told myself every day, Lee will come back. He has to come back. For a moment, all he could do was stare. Then something deep inside him broke open. The soldier's calm, the distance, the hardness built over months of war. He moved closer, trembling, and placed a shaking hand on her belly. There it was, the faint rhythm beneath his palm. A heartbeat smaller than his own, yet powerful enough to silence all the pain. His eyes glistened as he whispered, "Our child." Sam nodded, her tears falling freely now. Lee closed his eyes and pulled her into his arms, holding her as if he could keep the entire world from touching her. His breath trembled against her hair. You were never alone, Sam, he murmured. Even when I was gone, my heart, it was always here, with you. And for the first time since his return, Sam let herself cry, not from fear, but from the overwhelming relief that love, after all its silence and distance, had finally come home. That night, the house was quiet. The only sound was the soft ticking of the wall clock and the rhythm of Sam's breathing beside the window. Lee sat silently on the wooden chair across from her, his elbows resting on his knees, his fingers intertwined as if he was holding something fragile, invisible. He had faced gunfire, betrayal, and nights of hunger, but never had he felt such a storm inside his chest. Sam watched him from across the room, sensing the heaviness that surrounded him. The oil lamp painted golden shadows on his face, the face of a man who had seen too much and loved too deeply. Lee, she said softly, you're quiet, are you? Angry? He looked up, startled. Angry? No, Sam, never. His voice cracked slightly. I'm ashamed, ashamed. Lee nodded slowly, his gaze falling to the floor. When I left, I promised to protect you. I swore I'd come back quickly. But instead, I left you to face everything alone. The fear, the loneliness, the pregnancy. He paused, his throat tightening. You carried our child without me, and I didn't even know. Sam shook her head gently, tears glimmering in her eyes. You didn't choose to leave, Lee. You were doing your duty. You were protecting others. How could I blame you for that? But still, he said, his voice trembling, I should have been here. I should have been the one holding your hand when you found out, when you couldn't sleep, when you felt the baby move for the first time. She reached out and placed her hand over his. You're here now. That's all that matters. Her touch was warm, grounding, forgiving. It reminded him of why he fought so hard to survive, to return. He looked at her belly, where new life was growing, fragile but strong. Do you know what I thought about when things got hard? He whispered. Your voice. The way you smiled when you said goodbye. Every night, when I closed my eyes, I saw you standing by the river, waving to me. It kept me alive. Sam smiled faintly, though her tears didn't stop. And every night, I looked at the same river, wondering if you were still under the same sky. Lee leaned forward, resting his forehead against hers. The air between them smelled faintly of earth and jasmine. Then we were never truly apart, he murmured. The same sky kept us together. She nodded, her voice barely a whisper. Yes, Lee, love kept us alive. The clock ticked on, marking the beginning of a quiet redemption. Lee knew he could never undo the pain of the past, but he could build something new, a promise that this time, he would not leave again. He looked at Sam's weary but radiant face, and gently pressed a kiss to her forehead. From now on, he said softly. No more distance, no more waiting. I'll be here for you, for our child, for the life we still have to live. Sam closed her eyes, smiling through tears. Outside, the night wind whispered through the trees, carrying with it the scent of home, and the unspoken truth that love, after all its trials, had finally come full circle. The first light of morning slipped through the window, painting the walls with soft gold. Lee woke up early, his heart lighter than it had been in years. For the first time since his return, he felt peace, fragile, but real. He turned to see Sam still sleeping, one hand resting gently on her belly. The sight filled him with awe. He got up quietly, stepping outside to breathe in the fresh air. The smell of wet earth after last night's rain carried a quiet promise that life could begin again, no matter how broken the past had been. Lee began to move with purpose. He cleaned the small front yard, fixed the creaking gate, and then walked to the market. The villagers who once thought he was gone forever greeted him with cautious warmth. He returned home carrying fresh vegetables, a few eggs, and a small white blanket he bought from an old lady who smiled knowingly at him. When Sam woke up, she found the table set, a bowl of porridge steaming softly, and beside it, a tiny pair of knitted baby socks. You cooked? She asked, her eyes wide in surprise. Lee chuckled. Not as good as you, I'm sure, but I wanted to try. She touched the socks, her voice trembling. You bought these? He nodded. I saw them and thought, our baby might like them. Sam smiled, her tears falling silently. You're really here, aren't you? He stepped closer, cupping her face gently. I'm here, no more goodbyes. They sat together, eating in silence, each spoonful carrying memories, forgiveness, and hope. Outside, children's laughter echoed down the road, mingling with the songs of morning birds. The world felt alive again. That afternoon, Lee took Sam for a walk along the riverbank where they had once said farewell. The current shimmered under the sun, and the same old bridge stood strong despite years of storms. Do you remember this place? Sam asked. Lee smiled. Every single day. It was the last thing I saw before leaving, and the first thing I wanted to see when I came back. Sam placed his hand over her belly. Then let's promise our child will know this place, not as a memory of goodbye, but as a symbol of return. He nodded, feeling tears rise again. Yes, this will be where we begin again. As the sun slowly dipped into the horizon, Lee held Sam close. The light danced on the water, and for a moment, everything was still, as if the universe itself had paused to bless their reunion. He whispered, almost to himself, I thought I had lost everything, Sam, but coming back, I realized I never truly lost you. I just had to find my way home. Sam smiled, her voice soft as the wind. And now you're here, where you belong. The sky turned crimson, the river glowing like a trail of hope. In that quiet, sacred moment, Lee knew life had given him a second chance, and he would spend the rest of it protecting the love that had waited so patiently for him.